we finished our flyer, we finished the Instagram stories, the Instagram square, and the Facebook banner. Now we're going to create 7 different ads for web, but these are going to be animated. So we're going to look at the assignment sheet, and we have 7 different sizes here. I'm going to pick one of the ones that I think, one of the harder ones. So I'll pick the 160 by 600. We're going to go over to Photoshop, create new file, and then 160 pixels in width and what was it, 600 pixels in height. We don't really have to worry about resolution, but for web is always 72. We're keeping it the color mode as RGB, and I want my background just to be black since my image that I have here is darker. Alright, so there's our 160 by 600. So I have my flyer here open, and I want to grab parts of the flyer and bring it over onto my vertical piece here. So I'll select all of my layers here and just drag them over to my 160 by 600. Alright, so the first thing I want to do is resize it, edit, and then go to free transform. And if you press Command 0, you'll see the bounding box here. And I'm grabbing a corner, holding down Shift so that everything resizes proportionately. This is probably a good size for now to start off with. I don't want to bring it too small yet. So I want to make sure that maybe I could go a little bit smaller. So let me go back and bring it just a little smaller. Okay, so now what I want to do is resize the logo here and the width. So width and this logo, which is in the graphic element. So I'm going to take my logo and put it in the width folder because I want that to resize together. I want with Lil Jon to resize together. So I'm going to resize that down. So now I'll take the footer, resize the footer down. Alright, so if we go back into my flyer, I see that there's a little blue there, so I'm going to select my background, copy it, and paste it over top of the background that I have there to create that, bring that blue back. Alright, so now I go back to my elements here, which is pretty much Lil Jon and should be the fireworks. Alright, so now I want to maybe resize that just a little bit more. Bring him down. Alright, so now all I have left is come celebrate and the date. So I can bring that down. Resize this down. I don't want to get too small here because you still need to be able to read it. The bottom parts here are still readable, but I probably wouldn't want to go lower than that. Alright, so now what I'm going to do is just change the way that it's set up on one line to 2 lines here. And sometimes I would just kind of discuss it with the client before time. You just need to make sure that it looks consistent with what you have on your flyer. Okay, you want to make sure that we have the right workspace open. So I do have the right workspace open, but I closed out of our panel that we really need to use. So I'm just going to reset the motion workspace. Make sure that you have motion set on your workspace, and if you don't see the palette that we see here called timeline, then just reset it. All right, so now I'm going to do a couple different effects here in terms of animating things in. So my first frame, I'm just going to kind of make everything invisible. So I don't want things to be visible right now. I want things to kind of flow their way in. So the first step, what I'm going to do is I want the date to come in. So however you want it to come in is up to you. So what I'm going to do is just have it flash in and out. So first frame, nothing. Second frame there. The third frame, I'm going to click off of it again. Fourth frame, click onto it again. And maybe I want to do it another time. So add 2 frames, go to the middle frame and click off. So now it should just blink. Alright, so on that last frame, I'm just going to set so that it just sits on that frame for a second. So it's blinking, then it's going to go to that last frame and set. Alright, so let me add another frame here. And let me set it to no delay. And I'm going to bring in Come Celebrate New Year's. And the way I want to kind of bring that one in is I want it to fade in. So this frame that has no opacity to it, I'm going to select, and I'm going to hold down Shift to select frame number 7. And down here is like an animation tween. So right now it's just going to animate from what I have selected. So number 6, which is opacity at 0, is going to animate to full opacity on my text layer, Come Celebrate New Year's Eve. All right, so if I click that and I set the frames to about 4, it's going to add 4 frames, and the opacity should show throughout. So this one is probably 20%, then 40, 60, 80, 100. Make sure that underneath here where it says 1 second, you want to set your delay to 0. So I'm going to select all of these at once by holding down Shift, go up to no delay. If I play it, you can see it fades in. I also want to put another second on that one last frame. So it's going, fading in, and then I want to add another frame to start with bringing in my elements here. So I want to fade the picture or image in first. So I'm selecting 12 and 11, and I'm clicking on my tween. Let's just go 6. Alright, so I'm going to set all of my frames at no delay, and then have my last frame set for another second. Maybe I don't want to have a delay here. Maybe I want to have the logo pop in at the very end there, or as it's going. So I'll have it pop in, out, and in. Then I'll set this last frame to 1. Add another frame, set the delay to none, and I want to bring in my footer. So just to show you guys how easy it is to animate, I'm gonna try to just fade it in from the bottom. So here on this frame, I'm just gonna move it to the bottom below the screen, and then transparency on that frame's going to be 0. So I'm going to click off of it, and then on frame 19, I'm going to bring it back up to where it should be. I'm going back to these two last frames where my footer is set down below here. We can kind of check that by just hitting Command T. I see for transform, I can see my bounding box, so it's below my workspace. And then at the last frame, it's visible. So what it's going to do is going to travel its way from here all the way up to make itself visible. I also make sure that it's 0% fill and 0% opacity. So even if I moved it up, you want to be able to see it. All right, so now I'm going to select my 19 and 20 frames by hitting Shift and clicking the frame next to the one that was selected. Then I'm going to hit my Tween Animation button, and I'm going to add about 5 frames, and I want to make sure positions ticked, opacity, and you can have effects. I didn't really have any effects to it, so I'll just keep that as is and hit OK. Alright, so we got our frames here, and you can see as I'm clicking through, it's gaining opacity and it makes its way up. So what I want to do right now, it's pretty basic. Alright, so now since it's very basic and I want to kind of add a little bit more dynamic to it, I want it to come in quicker and end a little slower. So I'm going to go frame by frame, kind of bring these frames together a little bit more. So I get it to, maybe this one can have a little bit. So it jumps a lot from that one to the end one. I want it to come in quick and then work its way in a little slower. So here it's coming in quick. This one might work. So let's preview it. So that last frame probably can come up just a little bit. That should work. See how it eases in. It eases into the last frame and makes it look a little bit more fluid. Okay, on the last step, what we're going to have to do is save it as a GIF. You're going to have to export it, and you want to save for web. All right, so in our settings here, we want to make sure that I want to make sure that it is a GIF, and I would like it to loop. So when it loops, I don't want to just have it set to once. I want to make sure it's set to forever, so that when I'm checking it, it's going to keep looping. So I would also play it just to make sure everything looks correct before you submit the file. And then I would just save it. Save it to the desktop. Alright, so then once you have it saved, I would go to Safari or whatever web browser you're going to use. You can open up a new tab, go to File, and Open File. Find your file and just open it in a web browser so you can see how it animates within a web browser. Alright, so if that works, then you can upload it to Edmodo. I would upload all of them at once. Don't just upload one at a time. Alright, and that would be about it.